What if I told you that the most iconic skyline on Earth started as a small village with dirt roads and wooden houses? And what if the secret to understanding New York isn't about the buildings at all, but about the people who dared to build them higher than anyone thought possible? This is the story you've never heard, and it's about to blow your mind. Let's go back to 1625, Manhattan Island, a tiny Dutch trading post called New Amsterdam. Picture this: wooden houses with steep roofs, narrow dirt streets, a defensive wall where Wall Street now stands. The entire settlement could fit inside a modern city block. The Dutch built what they knew: two-story brick houses, small windows, everything practical, nothing fancy. The oldest building still standing, the Wyckoff House in Brooklyn from 1652. But here's the crazy part: those narrow, winding streets they created, they're still there today. Wall Street, Stone Street. The chaotic layout of Lower Manhattan is literally a 400-year-old Dutch street plan, frozen in time beneath modern skyscrapers. Then in 1664, everything changed overnight. The English showed up with warships and seized the entire colony without firing a shot. New Amsterdam became New York. And with the English came a completely different vision of what a city should look like. Symmetry, order, red brick, classical proportions. The English rebuilt New York in their image. St. Paul's Chapel, built in 1766, became a witness to history. George Washington prayed there. It survived the Revolutionary War. And here's something that'll give you chills. Image: St. Paul's Chapel on September 12, 2001, covered in dust but intact. On September 11, 2001, when the Twin Towers collapsed just one block away, St. Paul's Chapel didn't have a single broken window. A 235-year-old building survived what modern skyscrapers couldn't. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. After the Revolution, Americans wanted architecture that screamed, "We're not British anymore." So they did something brilliant. They copied the Romans instead. Federal architecture, inspired by ancient Rome, became the new American style. City Hall, built in 1811, is still in use today, still the center of city government. Then came the 1830s and the Greek revival craze. Suddenly, every bank, every government building, every rich person's house needed columns and pediments. America was obsessed with looking like ancient Athens. But here's what most people don't know. While the rich were building temples, average New Yorkers were creating something that would define the city forever. The Row House, narrow, deep, attached to its neighbors. That iconic high stoop leading to the front door. Entire neighborhoods became walls of these houses. Chelsea, Greenwich Village, Brooklyn Heights, miles and miles of harmonious facades that still exist today. But then, in the 1850s, came an invention that changed everything. Cast iron. Now stay with me, because this is where it gets interesting. Cast iron could be molded into any shape. It was cheaper than stone, stronger, fire-resistant, and it allowed something completely revolutionary: tall buildings with huge windows. Soho became the world's laboratory for cast iron architecture. Between 1860 and 1890, hundreds of these buildings rose. Their facades looked like carved stone, but were actually prefabricated iron panels that bolted together like Lego. The E.V. Hofwood building in 1857 combined cast iron with another invention that would change cities forever: the elevator. And that's the moment. That's when New York's destiny was sealed. Because before elevators, nobody wanted to climb 7 flights of stairs. Upper floors were cheap, undesirable. But with elevators, height became valuable. The race to the sky was about to begin. The Flatiron Building in 1902 was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Its triangular shape, forced by the weird angle where Broadway and Fifth Avenue meet, created a building that looked impossibly thin, like a knife blade cutting through the city. People literally stood on the street on windy days, waiting for it to blow over. They were certain it would collapse. It didn't. And it became an instant icon, but that was just the warm-up. The Woolworth Building in 1913 took things to another level. At 792 feet, it was the tallest building in the world. But here's what made it special. The architect, Cass Gilbert, didn't just build a tall building. He built a cathedral of commerce, a skyscraper covered in Gothic details, with a lobby so ornate it looked like a church. He proved that skyscrapers could be ART, not just engineering. Then came the 1920s, and things got absolutely insane. The 1916 zoning law said buildings had to set back as they rose. Architects turned this legal requirement into that iconic wedding cake style. And then came the rivalry that defined an era. Walter Chrysler wanted the tallest building in the world. So did the owners of 40 Wall Street. They were literally in a race, both buildings rising at the same time. 40 Wall Street topped out first. They celebrated. They won. Or so they thought, because Chrysler had a secret weapon, a stainless steel spire assembled in secret inside the building. And on October 23, 1929, they raised it through the roof in just 90 minutes. Chrysler won, 1,046 feet, the world's tallest building, for exactly 11 months, because the Empire State Building was already under construction. They built it during the Great Depression, when the economy had collapsed, when people were desperate for work. 3,400 workers, 410 days, rising at a rate of 4.5 stories per week. May 1st, 1931. The Empire State Building opened at 1,454 feet. It held the world height record for 41 years. And it became more than a building. It became the symbol of New York, of America, of human ambition itself. But after World War II, architectural philosophy underwent a revolution. European architects fleeing the Nazis brought radical ideas. No decoration, no historical reference, just pure form, steel, and glass. Lever House in 1952 pioneered the glass office tower. It looked like it was made of light itself. The Seagram Building in 1958 achieved perfection. Bronze and glass, mathematical precision. Mies van der Rohe created a building that's basically a Platonic ideal. But here's the problem with perfection. Everyone tried to copy it, and most failed miserably. The 1950s and 60s saw mediocre glass boxes rise everywhere. Urban renewal destroyed historic neighborhoods, replacing them with soulless towers. And then they made a mistake so catastrophic it changed everything. Penn Station, one of the most beautiful buildings in New York. A Beaux-Arts masterpiece with spaces that made you feel like you were in ancient Rome. In 1963, they demolished it to build Madison Square Garden. The outcry was immediate and fierce. One entered the city like a god, wrote the New York Times. One scuttles in now like a rat. This single act of vandalism led directly to the Landmarks Preservation Law of 1965, which has protected thousands of buildings ever since. By the 1980s, architects rebelled against boring modernism. Philip Johnson, the same architect who designed the glass Seagram Building, shocked everyone with the AT&T Building and its Chippendale pediment top. Postmodernism was back. Love it or hate it, architecture was interesting again. And then came September 11th, 2001. The Twin Towers fell. Lower Manhattan burned. The skyline had a wound that the whole world could see. The question became, how do you rebuild? How do you honor the past while moving forward? One World Trade Center rises to a symbolic 1,776 feet, the year of American independence. The memorial pools occupy the exact footprints of the original towers. The names of every victim are inscribed in bronze. It's not about forgetting. It's about remembering while moving forward. And New York kept building, kept reaching higher. A new generation of super-tall residential towers began transforming the skyline in ways nobody expected. 432 Park Avenue, 1,396 feet tall, but only 93 feet wide. It's a rectangular prism rising higher than the Empire State Building. These ultra-slender towers serve billionaires from around the world. Apartments selling for $95 million. Buildings so thin they sway in the wind. They're creating a new skyline above the classic Art Deco towers, a 21st century layer of glass and steel. Meanwhile, the High Line transformed an abandoned elevated railway into one of the city's most beloved spaces, and it sparked an architectural renaissance along its route. Buildings by Zaha Hadid, Jean Nouvel, Shigeru Ban rose nearby, some of the most innovative architecture in the world. Today, you can stand in New York and see 4 centuries of architectural evolution in a single view. Dutch colonial houses in Brooklyn, Federal-era City Hall, cast-iron buildings in Soho, Art Deco skyscrapers from the 1930s, modernist glass towers from the 1960s, postmodern experiments from the 1980s, contemporary supertalls from the 2020s, all coexisting, all part of the story. From a settlement of 300 people to a metropolis of 8 million, from wooden houses to buildings over 1,700 feet tall. This is New York's architectural evolution. 400 years of ambition, innovation, destruction, preservation, and the relentless drive to build higher, bolder, better. A city that never stops tearing down and rebuilding, never stops reinventing itself, where every generation adds its layer, where architecture isn't just about buildings. It's about identity, aspiration, the physical manifestation of millions of dreams. This isn't just the story of how New York was built. It's the story of how humans took a small island and built the most iconic skyline on Earth. And the story isn't over. Right now, new towers are rising, new architects are dreaming, new chapters are being written. Because in New York, the only constant is change, and the only limit is the sky.